Family. Welcome to the Practical Purpose Podcast. Midday motivation is July 4th. It is the 4th of July. All right, y'all can hear me. We good. It's the 4th of July. It's the 4th of July. Listen. I know y'all are going to enjoy this day. You out there on the grills. Listen, let me tell you right now, it's hot. If you anywhere near where I'm at, it is hot outside. I called one of my boys this morning, and he said he was cooking on the grill at 6 o'clock a.m. 6 o'clock a.m. this morning. He was on the grill because it's going to be too hot today. Man, listen, y'all, make sure you stay safe, stay hydrated, have some balance in what you eat today. Have some balance in what you eat. And make sure you stay hydrated because it's hot, man. Right now, I need y'all to go on and like, share, subscribe, send this out now. Your homeboys, your homegirls, they ain't at work today. They ain't at work. Go on and share this to them. You can take the link, put it in a text message. You can put it on your Facebook, put it on your Twitter, your Instagram, whatever it is. Go on and share this. Go on and share this because we're going to spend a few moments talking about a topic that we typically don't talk about. We're going to spend a few moments talking about balance today. Just a few moments. It ain't like you got to go to work. So we're going to spend a few moments just kind of unpacking what balance is in our lives, because oftentimes we think that we're stressed or we're overwhelmed by other people, but really it's a fact of the matter that we just don't have balance, right? And we're going to talk about that today. Listen, we're at that halfway point in the year. And so, I woke up this morning, I looked at my goals. I looked at my plans, I looked at my strategies, and there was one particular area where I'm just off the mark. I'm just totally off the mark. So I looked at it, and I'm encouraging you to take a look at your goals, take a look at your strategies, take a look at your plans for this year. And think about what you need to begin doing now, today, to get back on track, or to get on track, or to reevaluate, or to recalibrate where it is that you're going. There were some goals that I looked at least one, and I said, starting today, I'm going to exercise that discipline and that consistency so that I can reach this goal, and I'm still going to do it. Right. So it's that halfway point in the year. Take some time to analyze your goals, analyze your plans, analyze your strategies, and see where you are and where it is that you need to go. All right, it's that halfway point. It's time to do it. Don't wait till November and say, man, I should have did this in July. Listen, you remember the first series we talked about at the beginning of the year? We talked about beginning again, right? We talked about the fact that oftentimes you don't need to scratch your plan. You don't need to scratch your goals. You just need to start over. We talked about the fact that oftentimes we say, God is doing a new thing, and we kind of debunked that. We kind of talked about the fact that God is waiting on us to change. And so what you need to do is make sure you take a look at those goals, reanalyze them, and recalibrate. All right, so today, for a few moments, we hopefully won't be on long, but for a few moments, we're going to talk about balance. We're going to talk about balance, and balance is a topic that many people don't want to talk about, especially if you start tapping into or talking about Christians or believers. We don't talk about balance at all. All right, we don't talk about balance in our life. All right, and we're going to talk about that in just a few moments. Stay tuned.
1 2, yeah, 1 2, uh-huh. We living life with a practical purpose, making every day worth it. Live from the dungeon, we go deeper than the surface, leading with wisdom from the street to the churches. Searching, what seeking you find? We speaking right to your mind. The sun ain't fighting to shine, no diamonds either. Light hit the Jews and turn fools to believers. Steady making moves and teaching truth to the leaders. Use all these tools just so you can supersede us. It's ill. Yeah. Say 1 2. Yeah. Say 1 2. Yeah. 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 For real.
What's matter?
Oh, I'm just scared. You know, the tournament and everything.
You remember lesson about balance?
Yeah.
A lesson not just karate only. Lesson for whole life. Whole life have a balance. Everything be better. Stand bow. No, bow. Up.
What, up front?
Yeah. Make block. Left, right, up, down. Side to side. Breathe in, breathe out. And no scare fish.
Hey, when am I gonna learn how to punch?
Better learn balance. Balance is key. Balance good, karate good. Everything good. Balance bad, better pack up, go home. Understand?
Yeah, I understand.
Miyagi say balance good, life good, everything good. You don't have balance, you might as well pack up and go home. Miss Miyagi. All right. And so what he was talking about was how we need to have balance. And he said in that first clip, it's not just about karate, right? He said balance is it goes to everything in our lives. And listen, oftentimes we don't like to talk about balance. Oftentimes we blame other people for our stress. We blame other people for being overwhelmed. And sometimes it's real, sometimes it's impactful, sometimes it's the truth. But I suggest to you that many times we're overwhelmed with stress, not because of what other people are doing to us, but because we are out of balance. We're out of balance. And listen, if you're in the Christian sector, Christians definitely never talk about balance. Why? Because balance is a term that is typically associated with Hinduism or Buddhism, right? Or some of those other Eastern religions, right? But balance is something that the Bible does talk about. Matter of fact, the Bible describes life as the probability of balance and imbalance, and we'll look at it in a second. But balance is key. Balance is critical to your life. Listen, I suggest to you today that oftentimes you are not overwhelmed because of anything that other people are doing to you. You just haven't created balance in your life. Listen, that's something I struggle with is balance. I'm always 100 miles an hour in one direction, right? And because of that, I'm out of balance. And I begin to blame other people, my children, my wife, my job for being out of balance. And really it's not them, it's me. Listen, what is balance? Balance is an even distribution of weight, enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady. Let me say that again. It's an even distribution of weight, enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady. Listen, balance is needed if you're going to stand tall. Balance is needed if you're going to go steadily in one direction. In fact, I read a quote by Einstein, and Einstein says this: life is like riding a bike. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Think about that. Think about that. That's critical. Life is like riding a bike. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Right? Have you ever seen one just sit on a bike without the kickstand? They just sit there. It's impossible. You have to start the process of moving so that you can find and create that balance, right? You create balance in movement. You create balance in your life as you're moving. Now, there are times, and we're going to talk about this a little later, there's a time where you have to be still in order to understand how to formulate the plan to create the balance, but you create balance in your life in movement. And there are too many people that just sit still too long, don't do anything, don't act on what they're supposed to act on. They don't act on what the word says. They don't act on what God's telling them. They don't act on what their mentors or their wise counsel is telling them. And so because they're not acting on anything, they're out of balance. Balance happens in our life as we move. You can't ride a bike and create balance if you're sitting still. Balance happens as we move. Balance is not something you find, it's something you create. I'm gonna say that again. Balance is not something you find, balance is something you create. See, anything that you find, you can be passive about. Anything that you go looking for, you can be passive about. But when you're trying to move to whatever your goals are, when you're trying to be successful in whatever area or arena of life that you're called to be successful at, you have to be active. You cannot be passive. In fact, as I spoke a few weeks ago for the women's council at Refuge Temple Church, I told them God is not a passive God. He's only active. He's only active. He's active. He's always in pursuit of us, right? He's always in pursuit of showing his will, his plan, and his purpose in our life. And if you're going to find balance, if you're gonna find out where that balance is, you have to create it. You can't go looking for it. You have to create it. Right. And that's often a term. And I still struggle with that now. I still struggle with saying find balance. Right. But in actuality, you don't find balance, you create balance. When you get on that bike and you're sitting still, you're not doing anything. When you get on that bike and you're sitting still, you're not doing anything. You create the balance when you start moving. That's my daughter. My daughter trying to FaceTime me right now. And know I'm on this thing live and she trying to FaceTime me. Pecan Tan says they become complacent. Yeah, we get complacent. Right. And here it is. Here it is. The worst time in our lives where we lose balance is when everything is going good. See, when everything is going great, we don't think about being balanced. We don't think about being balanced because everything is going the way that we expect and want it to go in whatever particular season we're in our life. And so we end up losing balance because of it. Listen, this is a tough one here. You can't create balance and mismanage time simultaneously. You can't create balance and mismanage time simultaneously. Balance goes back to time management. It goes back to time management. That's an aspect of it. That's not the only aspect, but that's an important part. Balance goes back to time management. If you are a person that cannot manage your time, you're never going to create balance in your life. Right? I struggle with that. And I don't struggle with that on a grand level. Like I'm not going to squander 2 hours out of my day all at once. But when I calculate 5 minutes here and 4 minutes there and 10 minutes there, and I look back at it at the end of the day, I've been out of balance the entire day because I didn't manage my time well. Right. And also there's a flip side. Sometimes I'm always thinking about what needs to be done that I don't find the balance and the time to rest so that I can be efficient when I'm doing what needs to be done. Listen, if you can't manage time, you can't create balance in your life. You cannot. It's impossible to create balance in your life and mismanage your time. Listen, I go this far and say it's impossible to create balance in your life and mismanage your resources and relationships. If you do not know how to manage your resources and your relationships, you're not going to create balance in your life. Why? Because your resources and relationships take up your time. And if you mismanage your time, you're going to be out of balance. Did y'all hear what I just said? If you can't manage the relationships and resources in your life, you're going to mismanage your time and you're going to be out of balance. And again, I'm going to go back to it. Many of us are complaining about people in our lives. Many of us are complaining about situations and circumstances in our lives when the real issue is that you're out of balance. It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you not knowing how to put them in the proper place so that you can create balance. Amen. Say ouch. Listen, it's critical. It's critical. If you can't manage time, Pecan Tan says it's harder to manage change, harder to handle challenges. It all goes back to time management. That balance is critical, y'all. And again, we don't talk about it. See, and that's one of the problems. That's one of the problems with church folk. That's one of the problems. We've gotten so deep. We've gotten so spirit that we are no longer practical. And so we hear everything on Sunday and it feels good, it sounds good, and the E flat on the organ is great, and we run and jump and shout, but we have no practical application to our life on Monday. Right. And you have to understand that in your life, there has to be a balance. In everything, there has to be a balance. Listen, one of the best terms used to explain life is balance. One of the best terms used to explain life is balance. I'm gonna come back to that. Stephen Covey is an author. I have a few of his books at my job, but he writes about different strategies and effective people, effective students, effective kids. He says this: don't prioritize what's on your schedule, schedule your priorities. Don't prioritize what's on your schedule. Schedule your priorities. See that's all about balance. See, what I find is I can give 120% to my 9 to 5 and get home and give my wife and my kids 15. Out of balance. It's out of balance. And life is about balance. That's what it is. Life is a balance between letting go and holding on. Life is a balance between letting go and holding on. No matter how you want to put that, you can put that in the sphere of relationships. You can put that in resources. You can put that in time. Listen, life is a balance of letting go and holding on. You got to know what to let go of, who to let go of, and you got to know what to hold on to. And I'll add a third component to that because we miss it a lot of times. You've got to know what to let go of in certain seasons of your life and what to pull back into your life in different seasons, because everybody and every resource that you let go of in one season doesn't mean that that's never supposed to come around again. And oftentimes we dismiss people. Oftentimes we dismiss resources because in the season that we are currently in, we don't need them. That's why I tell people when you go to church, you need to always have some mechanism where you're taking notes, because just because what is said that Sunday is not for you that day, it may be for you at some point. And you got to know how to find that balance. Listen, it's a balance between holding on and letting go. Yes, sir. The Berry Group. Schedule your priorities. That's critical. And Barry, that goes back to that success list and that to-do list. You got to schedule what's important, right? You don't prioritize what's on the schedule. You schedule your priorities. That's critical. That's critical. Listen, let me keep moving because I don't want to keep you too long because I know you got to eat. One of the best terms used to explain life is balance. We experience different emotions when we are in balance or out of balance. Think about that. Think about the totality of your life. It's all about balance. That's so important to me. It's something I never heard in church. It's all about balance. Think about it. When you come home and you're upset and you're frustrated and you're mad and you're tired, it's because there's an imbalance somewhere. And oftentimes, instead of creating the balance that you need to come back to who you are, you find a different way to cope with the imbalance and you create more imbalance. Some of us cope with it by eating too much. Some of us cope with it by drinking too much. Some of us cope with it by isolating ourselves for long periods of time. Some of us cope with it by taking out frustration and anger on people who had nothing to do with it. Right? But life is either in balance or out of balance. That's where the majority of our problems come in. That's where the majority of our problems come in. It's imbalance. Some of you all, that's why your spiritual walk is falling, because you're out of balance. You've got a lot of theology, but you have no practical application in your life. In fact, if you're going to walk in wisdom, right? Wisdom is the principal thing. If you're going to walk in wisdom, you have to have the knowledge and the application. It's a balance. Some people have the knowledge and no application. One thing about my friend Barry right here, and I've told him this for years, he is one person that really applies what he learns. He applies it. That's wisdom, right? Many of us have knowledge, no wisdom, because we don't know how to apply what we learn. And I'm not just talking about in the spiritual sense. I'm talking about in your life. We don't know how to apply what we learn. PK Tan saying, boy, that letting go is tough. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough. Letting go, practicing discipline, practicing consistency is tough. In fact, Paul says this. He says, lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily besets us. Right? He talks about letting go. Paul makes it sound easy in the text, but it's not easy. And that's the critical piece for us, especially for those people who watch the Practical Purpose podcast that are in ministry. Listen, you got a lot of sayings and quotes out the Bible, but you don't teach people how to apply it. I ain't going there today. It's got to be a balance. It's got to be a balance. Unhealthy coping mechanisms. Yeah, we start doing unhealthy things. But life is about balance. I'm trying to stay on track with PK and 10 be coming for me. Life is about balance. Listen to what Langston Hughes says. Langston Hughes says, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Y'all heard that. He's taking his life and he's making a contrast and a comparison. Think about when people typically explain what their definition of life is either balanced or imbalanced. Listen, and life would be good if we had more happy days than sad days. Life would be good if we had more days with money in the bank than days without. In fact, the old gospel song says, I've had some good days and some hills to climb. Every time you think about the way you explain what life is, you explain it as the balance of probabilities. Listen, Paul Lawrence Dunbar, the poet, says this: what is life? A crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile and an hour to weep in, a pint of joy to a peck of trouble, never a laugh, but the moans come double. That's life. Paul Lawrence Dunbar explains life as balance, as the balance of probabilities. Everybody had to recite that thing in English during Black History, but yeah, that's a life for B.A. Bendo Crystal Stair. Yeah, y'all know that one. Listen, Paul Lawrence Dunbar explains life I'm gonna read it again. As balance. Listen, he says a crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile, an hour to weep in. Those are contrasting things. A pint of joy to a peck of trouble. Never laugh, but the moans come double. That's life. Kanye and Jay-Z did the same thing. They said it's a what? It's a hard knock life. Talking about the balance between how hard life is for some and how hard it is for others. Listen, but life again is the balance of probabilities. So you hear Langston Hughes, you hear Paul Lawrence Dunbar, you hear Kanye. Listen to what Solomon says about life. Solomon is the wisest man that ever lived. Listen to what he says in Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. Listen to what he says. He says, for everything there's a season. That's talking about life. And a time for every matter under the heaven. Now, we're not going to unpack this today. But he says, for everything there's a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant, a time to pluck up what was planted. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep, time to laugh, time to mourn, time to dance, time to cast away stones, time to gather them, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, a time to lose, time to keep, a time to cast away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak. Some of us need to focus on that one. A time to love, a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. What is he describing in all of those things? He's describing balance. He's describing balance. It's a time for everything under the sun. He's describing, and as long as you understand the differences in those timings, you find balance. See, we categorize life based off of our balances and imbalances. We categorize life based off our balances and imbalances. I'm not going to unpack that text, but on your own time, after you finish eating, while you got your plate, look at Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, and you'll have to acquiesce to the fact that everything he's saying is true. There's a time for everything. And again, balance is created in our lives based off of how we manage, how we understand times and seasons in our life. And so I want to talk to you just a few minutes. I want to close it out with giving you a few ways to create balance in your life. A few ways. Remember, balance is not found in our life, it's created, which means we have to actively pursue it. Balance is not found in our life, it's created, and so we have to actively pursue it. Here's number one: know when to turn off. Know when to turn off. Listen, we oftentimes we're distracted because we don't know when to turn off. Like, and I'm not just talking about electronics. I'm talking, sometimes you have to turn off talking to certain people, or not even certain people, talking about certain things, right? Sometimes you have to turn off. You have to kind of seclude yourself. You got to find a space that's yours, and you have to turn off. Listen, there are times where I'm like, yo, I'm tired of my phone blowing up. I turn my phone off completely. There are times my wife don't like this, but there are times where I'm like, yo, cut the TV off. No TV. House silent. Because there are times, if you're going to create balance in your life, that you've got to eliminate those distractions and turn off. Here's an interesting quote by my friend Kenny Smith. He says this. He says, we don't identify distractions until they're done distracting us. Let me say that again. We don't identify distractions until they're done distracting us. That's a quote by Kenny Smith. Listen, not Kenny the Jet Smith. We oftentimes don't realize we're being distracted until after our time has been wasted. Because we don't we don't know how and when to turn off. All right. And if you're going to create balance in your life, number one is you got to know when to turn some things off. All right. And if you've got real relationships, if you've got real friendships in your life, when you tell a person, hey, I'll holler at you tomorrow, they understand that. They understand that he's doing this to create a balance. He's doing this to try to turn off so that he can focus on what's most important in his life. Listen, number two, this is a tough one. You got to learn how to say no. If you're gonna create balance in your life, you got to know how to say no, and that's tough. That's tough for many of us because many of us we're always in the business, in the mindset of doing for someone. We're always trying to help someone else. We're always trying to do something to help someone else, and oftentimes we've got to learn how to say no. You can't be everything to everyone. I'm gonna say that again. You can't be everything to everyone. And so often we drain ourselves because we're out of balance, trying to be everything for everyone else, that we don't prioritize the people who mean the most in our life. And so what we end up doing is not saying no, thinking it's going to be taken in such a way by the other person as if I don't like you, I don't care for you in this moment, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. But oftentimes we got to learn how to say no to create balance. No is hard. Saying no sometimes is hard. Now, there's a difference in saying no because you're trying to be obnoxious or mean or just insensitive, and saying no because you're trying to create some balance in your life. You gotta know how to say no. You gotta know when to turn off, and you gotta know how to say no. Listen, number three, watch your mental, physical, and spiritual health. Let me go back to this. My sister, she said a no to one thing is a yes to something else. That's good. That's balance. That's balance, right? And that yes, sometimes you can't get to that yes until you know how to say no to something else, right? You can't even get to the yes, right? And the yes has to be more important than saying whatever the no had to be, whatever it was that you had to say no to. That yes has to be more important, right? Right. You got to number three, you got to watch your mental, your physical, and your spiritual health. You can't have tunnel vision. Listen, so in our lives, we are created beings, right? And we are created spirit, soul, and body. We are a spirit, we have a soul, we live in a body, right? And so oftentimes we get tunnel vision and we only focus on one of three of our parts, right? You get so focused on your mental health that you negate your spiritual and physical health. You get so focused on your physical health that you negate your mental and your spiritual health, right? And so many people get so focused on what they think is spiritual health. Or every time the church doors open, I'm going. That don't mean you growing. Just because you're going don't mean that you're growing. And you focus on what you think is spiritual health, and you look around and your mental health is gone because you get tunnel vision. We all do it. If you're gonna create balance in your life, you can't get so tunnel vision that you negate the three parts of who you are. You're a spirit with a soul in a body. Right. But we often do this when it comes to our relationships. We are so focused on our careers that we negate our family. Right. Or we give our career 120% and give our family 50. Right. We get so tunnel vision that we don't create balance in our life, and we end up finding ourselves having something that no one wants to live with, and that's regret. The worst thing to live with is regret, because we got so tunnel vision. It's so interesting. I've worked with people who are a little bit older than me, right? And they always bash these millennials. They always bash this newer generation. Man, we used to stay to work 5 hours extra over every day. We didn't leave till 8 o'clock. And these young people just don't have the work ethic, because soon as they can leave, they're gone. Right. And I said something to this lady, and I got in trouble, but I said it. And I said, and that's why y'all's marriages and kids were all over the place, because y'all gave 120% to a career, and you didn't give enough time to the people that you should have prioritized. And these young people are understanding, I'm not giving you 120% at this job and not giving myself 100% at home. And as older people, we think that's being lazy, but it's actually finding balance. And that's why you can see people who these young people who look so stressed Monday through Friday, and you get on their Facebook on Saturday and they in Cancun somewhere, because they understand that I'm not about to give 120% to one thing and not be able to give it to myself and to the people that matter the most in my life. And so as older people, we call that being lazy, but it's not lazy. It's balance. It's balance. I tell my teachers in my school, listen, school get out at 3:45, whatever time school get out. You don't need to be in this school every night till 6 o'clock. Now, there are some times where you got to get some things done, but you're out of balance if you're working over and not getting paid to work over every single day. You're negating something else, and you're out of balance. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, even going to work. Listen, y'all listen in. Listen in. If y'all bosses listening, send this to them. Listen, you work to get your days off. You work to get your days off. You got to find the balance, because you will throw your mental capacity in the trash can if you don't learn how to turn some things off. Find the balance to take your time to yourself so that you can be effective for other people. And that's the problem. We're not effective with other people because we don't take the time to ourselves. Listen, I'm telling the truth. People don't like it. But that's another thing we need to stop. Stop bashing the younger generation so much, because at one point we were the younger generation being bashed for the way we thought. And now we've got a generation that is thinking. They're critical thinkers. You remember there was such a time, and I'm gonna get back on topic. There's such a time where you didn't ask your parents a question because it was disrespectful. Why do I need to do that? Because I said so. Listen, that's the worst answer. We get it. We get authority. But you saying because I said so don't help me become a critical thinker. Right. And these young people, they ask questions. Oftentimes it's not to be disrespectful. It's because they're critical thinkers and they think more and farther in advance than we do. Stop criticizing the younger generation for having balance, because that's why you didn't have balance when you were their age. I'm going to keep moving. I'm sorry. That'll preach. I work to get my days off. Yeah, I learned that from Dr. Nichelle Swindler. She's gone now. She's passed away, but that's one thing she taught me. My first year in the classroom as a teacher, I didn't take a day off, and I was coaching basketball, doing marching band stuff, all kind of stuff. I didn't take a day off, and she said, Coach, you work to get those days. Matter of fact, you got to work a certain amount of days to get the days off. You need to take your days off. I learned that. She said, don't be that person that get ready to retire and you got to give them money back because you got 150 days stored up. Take your days. You work for them. Once I understood that concept, I understood the fact that I could be more productive when I took every month that one day and not went to work and got some things done that helped me be more effective for other people. Let me keep moving. All right, so you got to know when to turn off. You got to say no. You got to watch your mental, physical, and spiritual health. Here it is. Number 4, you have to avoid, release, and ignore negative people. I'm going to say that again. You have to avoid, release, and ignore negative people. Why did I say all three of those? Because there's some people in your personal life that you can avoid, but there's people at your job you cannot avoid. You have to release. There's some people in your personal life that you got to just let them go. You can't do that in your work at your 9 to 5. But at your job, you can ignore some negative people. Listen, I've had to say this before, and the person I said it to might be watching. I had to tell them, hey, man, don't call me if you're only going to call me to talk about somebody else. I ain't got time for that in this season. I don't have time. I'm too focused on what I need to be doing. Don't call me and talk to me about someone else. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and act like it ain't interesting conversation. It is, but I had to get to a point where I had to tell that person, "Hey, don't call me if you're calling me to talk about someone," because I was mismanaging my time by being on the phone with you, and by mismanaging my time, it was putting me out of balance. All right. Avoid, release, ignore negative people. The scripture said that Jesus could do no miracles where he was because of their unbelief. He had to move. Jesus moved to a different place because the people there did not believe. They were negative. And oftentimes you've got to surround yourself. The issues that you're having in your life is because of a lack of balance, but it's because you're surrounding yourself with people who are giving you energy that you don't need. They're feeding you stuff that may be tantalizing initially, may taste good, may feel good, may sound good, but on the back end, it's causing you to be out of balance. There's a way that seems right to you. But the end of it is destruction. Listen, you've got to understand how to avoid, release, ignore negative people. Here's the fifth thing. I got three more. The fifth thing is you got to be still. You got to find or create the balance in your life that allows you to know when it's time to be still. All right, because I'm a proponent of the fact that you've got to keep moving in order to create balance. But there are times where you have to be still to figure out the direction and the velocity that you need once you start back moving. Psalm 46:10 says this: be still and know that I am God. You're not going to know or have the relationship that you're supposed to have with him if you don't figure out when it's important and key and critical to be still. There are times where you've got to be still. Jesus would steal away. The scripture says, y'all remember that old gospel hymn? Steal away. Jesus would steal away by himself. He would send the disciples off somewhere, then he'll go off by himself. Why? Because that alone time, that stillness recharged him, right? To be able to go and be about his father's business. You got to know when it's time to cut the TV off, turn it off now. You got to know when it's time not only to turn stuff off, because you can be still and have stuff on. You got to know when to be still in peace. You know, I've discovered in the last couple of weeks that a lot of times we say we want happiness. That's the key. That we want joy. Right? But you know what I really discovered, at least for me, it ain't about that. It's about peace. I want peace because I can be in a tumultuous situation and not have happiness, not have joy. But if I got peace, I'm good. I'll be all right. I can be in the middle of a storm, but if I have peace, I'm all right. And the only way you're going to get to that peace is to know when to move and when to be still. Here's number 6. I got 8. Here's number 6. Prioritize relationships. Prioritize the right relationships. Listen, some of us, and we talk about this just about every show. That's called relational intelligence. Some of us have people in the wrong places of our life, and we wonder why we're out of balance. We wonder why we're out of balance. We got people in the wrong places. The scripture says that we should be seeking wise counsel. You got to know who you're supposed to be talking to. You got to know who's supposed to be close to you and who's not. Right. You got to prioritize relationships. You know, every time Jesus went somewhere, he had Peter, James, and John with him. Right. Now, I'm not sure. I can say for John had to do some of the most scary, some of the most writings like in the book of Revelation that anybody has ever done. He had to see some things that nobody else would see. That might be why he had them close. I don't know. Peter had to issue in the church in Acts chapter 2. That might be why he had them so close to him. I don't know about James. I don't know. But even Jesus prioritized relationships. The wrong person in place will throw your life out of balance. Y'all know I'm not lying. Y'all know I'm not lying. The wrong person in a certain place in your life will throw your life all the way out of balance. And whose fault is it that we've got the wrong person in place? Miss Brasley. Miss Brasley. I love Miss Brasley. She all right. She's all right. It'll throw your life out of balance. And see, what we typically do is if we have the wrong people in place and then we blame those people because we put them in the wrong place. If they're in the wrong place in your life, it's because you did it. That's called accountability. Wrong people in place will throw your life out of balance. And you've got to find and create that balance in your life. I told you I'm still struggling with saying find and create. Listen, I got a few more minutes. Here it is. Number 7, be good to yourself. Be good to yourself. We so critical of ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up so much. You got to be good to ourselves. Y'all remember that song about what Brothers Johnson? I'll be good to you. I can't sing. I wish I could. The Lord knew what he was doing though. Be good to yourself. Like treat yourself with the utmost respect. We don't do that. We don't do that. Listen, we put stuff in our body that we know ain't good for us. Right? Out of balance. We put too much stuff in our body that we know not good for us. Right? It's out of balance. It's oftentimes we mentally beat ourselves down for the decisions that we make. Now, there's a fine line between responsibility, accountability, and tearing yourself down. Right? You got to be good to yourself. You've got to now. I don't mean that you baby yourself. I don't mean that you make excuses. What I mean is you treat yourself with the same respect that you treat other people with. We don't do that. We negate that. I struggle with that. Listen, I will run myself in the ground to make sure that other people are all right. I run myself in the ground. Not saying that I should, but sometimes you got to reflect and be good to yourself. Treat yourself better than what you treat. If you're going to be successful this second half of the year, treat yourself better than you've been doing. Treat yourself better than you've been doing. All right. And oftentimes in this social media age, we see that as people going on these trips, people eating good, people eating these nice meals, going to these concerts, things like that. And that's a part of it. But it's a daily thing. It's a daily thing. You know, like I woke up this morning, I looked at one of my goals. I said, man, I'm so far off of this goal. But today gonna be the first day that I'm gonna put myself back on the trajectory that I need to be successful. I'm gonna do it today. And I began saying, now I'm not a proponent of all of that positive, just speak positive and it happened. The law of attraction. I don't believe in all of that. From a spiritual sense. But I do believe that the more you encourage yourself, the more you begin to take actions to become what it is you're talking about. It don't just happen because you say it. It happens because once you say it, you begin to move in that direction. And as you begin to move in that direction, things start to happen. And things happen because God allows those things to happen. You don't manifest nothing. I'm not going there. Be good to yourself. All right, and the last thing is step outside of the norm. Challenge yourself, but have fun. Listen, like this right here. This right here. I believe that one of my gifts is the ability to be my brother, Diggs, my guy, my guy. My one of my gifts is the ability to educate. When I look at everything in my life, and I had this conversation with my good friend yesterday, um, everything that I do at the base of it, at the foundation of it, is educating, is teaching, right? And I believe that's one of my gifts. It's a very serious thing, in my opinion, but I like to have fun with it. Like, like step outside of the norm. Sometimes I struggle with that. I struggle with that. My sister is on here and she just did like some headshots for me, and I struggled doing photos. I'm not a picture guy, right? And now that I think about it, now I'm thinking like, man, if I had this, if I had thought about this, step outside of the norm, do some things that's going to challenge you, but that also allow you to have fun. It allows you to do some things in your life that create that balance. It creates that balance. All right. All right. So ways to create balance in your life: know when to turn off, know when to say no, pay attention to your mental, your physical, and your spiritual health. Avoid release and ignore negative people. Be still. Prioritize relationships. Be good to yourself and step outside of the norm. Here's your homework. Closure. Here's your homework. 2 questions. In what areas of your life do you need to create balance? In what areas of your life do you need to create balance? Listen, I know for me, it's a work home life type balance thing, but it's a little deeper than that because uh, I go to work, but then I work once I get home. I have another job that I work once I get. It's finding the balance. It's creating that balance in that. That's it for me. For some of y'all, it may be financially. How do I create balance in my finances? How do I create balance in my spiritual life? Like I want to read my Bible, but it seems like it's boring to me. Like, how do you create that balance in your spiritual life, your mental life, your physical life? I want to be in shape, but I don't want to work out. Where can I create some balance here in my life? Right. The second thing that's part of your homework is identify one area this week, July 4th, and take progressive steps to create balance in that area. Take some progressive steps. I don't know what that may be. For me, I looked at my goal this morning and I said, man, I actually reassessed all of my goals. And I put, at this point in the year, am I on target? Am I off target? And then any goals that I was off my target I created a plan moving forward to reach them. And some of them, I actually shifted the goal to something else. Right. And so I can only reach those once I create some balance in my life. All right. All right. So that's your homework. What areas of your life? I want you to write them down that you need to create balance, and then choose one of those areas this week and start taking progressive steps to create balance. All right, choose one of those areas. It may be a simple one, but choose some areas that you need to create balance for in your life. The scripture I need you to read, Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. Solomon talks about how we categorize our life, how we explain our life through the lens of balance, contrasting things, creating balance in our life. All right, listen, it's July 4th. I'm Dr. Williams. This is the Practical Purpose Podcast, midday motivation. Don't eat too much today. Hydrate. If you're in the South where I'm at, it is not only hot, it's humid. 10 seconds and you done sweated out your shirt where I'm at. Listen, be careful, be safe. Don't go out there. I got a lot of stuff I need to do. I got to get it done. But I got to find the balance. Listen, Ms. Bradley says exactly, taking time off. I have so much. Listen, Listen, you work for that PTO. You work for that PTO. Use it. Use it so that you can be effective. Listen, and some of us, we can't even think about ourselves. We don't think about ourselves enough. And that's why one of them was saying, be good to yourself. But if you're one of those people like me that I'm always thinking about how I can be better for someone else, that PTO is going to make you more effective for someone else. So even if you can't think of, man, if I take a day off, I'm not going to do nothing but sit around the house. Even if you think that's not effective for you, that's going to make you even more effective for someone else. That's going to allow you some time to go take your kids to school. Go sit in a classroom for 10 minutes if you want to. It's going to allow you the time to be more effective and more efficient for other people. And even if you can't be good to yourself and think of yourself, think about how being still is going to allow you to be better for someone else. That's critical. That's critical. July 4th, we're thinking about the day. All of the people that have given their life for this country to help us become an independent. And see, y'all church folk get on my nerves. We don't celebrate Independence Day because whom the sun sets free. Man, I bet y'all sitting on your couch though. You ain't go to that job. You took that day. You took that day. Black folk, we don't celebrate. We celebrate Juneteenth. Y'all ain't know what Juneteenth was till 5 years ago. And you at home today. You ain't go to that job. Talking about you don't celebrate July 4th. I do. Listen, and to close out, let me go and close out and get out y'all way.